Hello, it's Dr. Gibson. Welcome to our Module 3 video about independent t-tests. All right, our highlights are our main subjects this time. Main points, we're going to do a little bit of a refresher on t-tests. We're going to talk about independent t-tests, and then we are going to look back at last week's test. All right, so what do t-tests do? T-tests compare the means of two data sets using a variation of the normal distribution called the t-distribution to determine whether the difference between the means is large enough to reject HO. All right. And then last week we studied a dependent t-test. They used data recorded from the same participants at two different points in time to test the effect of a treatment that had been given to the participants. The recorded data is summarized to calculate a before treatment mean and an after treatment mean. Then those means are compared. This week we're going to work with independent t-tests. So an independent t-test compares samples from two independent populations. In other words, it's different participants this time. Ideally, the populations are similar in everything except the quantity being studied. So for example, group 1, or population 1, sample 1, is people using weight loss plan 1, whatever the first weight loss plan is. Group 2 is people using weight loss plan 2. Weight lost after 12 weeks in the study is measured for everyone in both groups. Data is summarized into a mean weight loss for each group. Then the two means are then compared, right? We're going to use our t-test to compare the means. All right, so that's a typical setup for the way an independent t-test would work. All right. Now looking back to last week's report. So I recommend here, what you do is you pause the video and you pull up the sample or the example report document for the dependent t-test from last week. Once you've got it up on your screen, go ahead and restart this video, because I'm going to go through a few things that we can pick up from that report. All right. All right, so the first thing you see, if you look at the box plot near the top, right, we're looking for outliers in that box plot. And outliers in SPSS has two kinds of outliers. Extreme outliers are marked with an asterisk, and a regular or a non-extreme outlier is marked with an open circle. All right, so what we're going to do in this class, which is pretty common, it really depends on the situation and it's a judgment call. But if anytime we see an extreme outlier, we're going to remove it. And regular outliers, we'll just leave those data values in place. All right. Now, as you move further down the report, one of the assumptions, we do a test for normality. This is the first time you see this. SPSS is not very consistent about this. Sometimes they were going to call a p-value sig. It's an abbreviation for the word significance. The p-value is sometimes called the significance of the test. So, I mean, it's a legit label. The thing that's just a little bit annoying about SPSS, it goes back and forth. Sometimes it'll call the p-value sig. Sometimes it'll just call it a p-value. So you have to be prepared. Anytime you see either sig as a label or p-value, then that's a p-value. Now, so get a little further down. Find the table. It says paired sample statistics. All right. We do a little bit of an eyeball test on this thing. Notice, so we're comparing, we've got our before and our after. We're going to look at the difference between the means. All right. And there's in a column, there's a thing called the standard error of the mean, or abbreviated sometimes SEM, standard error of the mean. It's the standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. All right. So when you're looking at this kind of information at the beginning of a t-test, what's going to happen is this: a significance or a p-value of 0.05 happens roughly when the difference between two means is 2 times the SEM. So by looking at this beginning data, you can see that the difference between the means is in fact greater than 2 times the standard error of the mean it shows us. So at that point, just eyeballing it, we can look and expect that this difference is going to be significant. And we can look then and see, once we get down and see how the test actually ran, we can verify, yes, that is what happened. All right. Okay. Now it's time, right? Do a little of our work and studying, get ready, and then you are going to get the chance to perform an independent t-test. See you next week.